So, hello everyone. This is Marwa Dabeih, CF Vice President. It's a pleasure and honor to have you all here today to listen to this very interesting topic about destroying national identity, the problems of Palestine heritage today. Our guest is Dr. Raymond Bondin, and we are so happy that he could give us from his precious time and experience to share his knowledge around this topic. We will start this webinar by a short introduction about CF by CF President Hossam Mahdi. Then I will introduce Dr. Raymond Bondin, and then we will start the presentation. The talk will take around 30-40 minutes, and then after that we could have time for questions.
30 minutes.
Yes. So Hossam, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Marwa. Okay, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. And it's welcome to the CF webinars or web cafe series. And this one is very important. And I'm really pleased that Dr. Raymond agreed to be our guest today. CF is the International Scientific Committee on Built Vernacular Heritage of ICOMOS. Our interest is the vernacular built heritage, and actually it is we are the built heritage, the vernacular built heritage is really across so many other interests, because for example, if somebody is interested in earthen buildings or stone buildings or cultural landscapes and many other typologies of heritage. This also can be, and the historic villages and so on, this also can be part of the, so there is overlap with the vernacular heritage. And we try every year to hold a conference once a year to discuss issues of vernacular heritage. And now with the Zoom culture, we are working on this web cafes series, which give us a much more chance to interact. And I really invite anyone who is interested in the vernacular built heritage to join us. We are really would like very much to have more colleagues from all over the world to discuss the issues. And of course, because vernacular heritage is also living heritage, so there is, although this, the lecture today may not be on the vernacular per se, but because it is about the identity and about the people, then it is about the vernacular, because the vernacular is about the identity of place and the identity of people and the way of life. So I am really excited to hear Dr. Raymond and to the discussions afterwards. And please do contact us if you are interested to join CF. Thank you.
Thank you, Hossam, and thank you so much again for all of you who are joining us today. And we are recording the session, so it will be available also after that on CF YouTube channel. We are again very excited to have Dr. Raymond Bondin with us today, and he has a PhD in conservation and has been actively involved in many major organizations. For example, he had been active for 8 years in ICROM Council, 9 years in ICOMOS as ICOMOS executive, and 7 years in CIVVIH committee as a president. Also 4 years ambassador of Malta to UNESCO. He has been involved with Palestinian heritage since 25 years, including being a consultant on the World Heritage dossier. During 2022 to 2024, he visited Gaza 3 times with regard to the 4th century Saint Hilarion Monastery. First, he evaluated an Alfi Foundation project. Alif, right?
Yes, Alif.
Then was involved in the World Heritage nomination approved this year. His talk today will cover the topic destroying a national identity, the problems of Palestinian heritage today. Given the sensitive timing, I think this topic is of extreme importance. Thank you so much again, Dr. Raymond Bondin, for your time. And I will start sharing the screen so we can start with your presentation. Yes. Can anyone see the presentation now?
Yes, that's it. Perfect.
Okay. So please give me a sign and I will flip to the next.
Okay. Well, first of all, it is a big honor for me to be here speaking about Palestine, which is one of my most cherished subjects that I like to speak about. Of course, we hear so much about the war. We hear so much about what is happening. We hear so much about, unfortunately, the deaths of people. And of course, our priority should always be taking care of people. But at the same time, the problem of the identity of Palestine is of extreme importance, and I will explain why. Yes, go on, please. Marwa. I will explain why, because there is a very clear program to destroy the national identity of Palestine. And this is extremely important to understand. And people do not realize what is happening is part of a plan. First of all, I wish to emphasize, first of all, thank you very much for mentioning some of the things I've done. I have been extremely collaborating with Palestine since 1998. Yes, Marwa, yes. And I want to emphasize very much that this has nothing to do about politics. Politics does not interest me. My only interest is in heritage. And when we talk about heritage of such an important place, but even heritage of other places, we are not talking only about heritage which is important to the country, but heritage which is part of the history of mankind. So it is our heritage as well. And we are obliged somehow or other to protect this heritage. Now, first of all, I want to say that I have been involved in many conflict areas. It is one of the teams I like to work with because I like to help people that need help. Some of them have been very difficult because there are conflicts. There are conflicts between nations and cultures within the same country, and sometimes conflicts, of course, with the countries attached to the country. But I think that in all my work, I've never faced the situation that we have in Palestine. Yes, Marwa. In Palestine, first of all, we have to emphasize, and this is very important, that what is happening now, especially in these past months, in this past year, is not something that happened just suddenly. This has been going on for many years now. As you know, there is a real control over the Palestinian territory, and the people have been facing enormous problems. And unfortunately, a lot of these problems are never spoken of in the media. We hear about a lot of things in the media. We hear about figures of people dying and so on, but we don't hear about the actual big problem that Palestinians have to survive. Just to give you an example, someone who is from Gaza, so from a part of Palestine, and he found a job in Ramallah, in the capital of Palestine. It's a as you know, a provisional capital, because the capital should be East Jerusalem. For 3-4 years, he tried to get permission to go to work in Ramallah and was refused by Israel. So someone who is going from one part of your country, Gaza, trying to go to another part of the country, Ramallah, and he's not able to. And his only option was to go abroad. So this is the situation, and that is why what is happening is an attempt to destroy the national identity of Palestine. What is a national identity of a country? There are, in my opinion, three elements which are very important. The first element is, of course, the territory. If you say you are Italian, everyone knows where Italy is. If you say you are Maltese, everyone knows where Malta is. If you say you are Egyptian, everyone knows where that is. But in the case of Palestine, this is not so, because Palestine is formed of pieces of territory which are divided. So there is no territory that is clearly what is Palestine. Plus, there is another government who can go in with their tanks and with their army into the parts that we call Palestine. And this is an extremely important difficulty to identify what is Palestine. Secondly, most countries are identified by language, but in the case of Palestine, as in the case of most Arab countries, of course, Arabic is spoken. So you cannot say that someone who speaks Arabic is from Palestine unless you know he's from Palestine. So you cannot really use the language in this case. Of course, in other countries, like say, even in my country, you can say Maltese, which is, by the way, half Arabic, half Italian. It's a very complex language, but everyone would know you are from Malta. Everyone would know that you are from Italy or from whatever. In Arab countries, the main language is Arabic, with some dialects, of course. Yes, ma'am. But it is not easy to identify where you are from just from your language. And the third element is the cultural heritage that the country has. Cultural heritage makes up a very important part of how we identify a country and how we can say that that heritage belongs to that country. This element has not been studied enough, and has not been studied enough even at all levels. I'm very glad that I am talking to SIAF, because one of the main problems in what even I'm going to talk about is that vernacular architecture is not given the importance that it deserves. And we are seeing so much destruction of the vernacular architecture, because many times it is not even documented. So we are losing whole elements of how villages were, how the living heritage was. We have examples, but they are being destroyed in a very strong way. And this is also the case in Palestine, where, because of all the problems that are involved, the main attention is obviously on the big monuments to try and save as much of the big monuments. Well, as you are reading here, I started my work in Palestine about 1998, 1999, when I helped with the tentative list for World Heritage. together with Dr. Hamdan Taha, but also because Munir Bushanaki had asked me to co-chair a meeting on the archaeological cover of Hisham's Palace, which has been now nominated for World Heritage, which has some of the most beautiful mosaics I know. And at the time, there was a proposal for a cover by the Italian government, which was very doubtful. I co-chaired this meeting, and I had big problems with Father Piccirillo, who is a very well-known, he was a very well-known Italian archaeologist, a Franciscan priest, who loved Palestine, but unfortunately, at the time, and this has changed a bit, but not completely, there was this idea that another European country like Italy and like France and others who come in with money, which is important because money is important, of course, to be able to do projects, but who did very little to actually train local people. And this was a big mistake. I'm not saying Father Piccirilli did not train local people. He did train some people in mosaic restoration, but not enough. And though it has changed somewhat, but we still have so many archaeological missions from European countries and from the States and other places, which are not controlled enough in the work that they do. But even in Jericho in 1998, 99, I could immediately understand the big problems that Palestine was living through. To get from Jericho to Jerusalem, to my hotel, we had to pass 3 checkpoints, and the checkpoints would suddenly close or open according to the wishes of another country. So Palestine was already suffering tremendously as it is now. Next slide. I want to emphasize that, of course, like you, like everyone, I read a lot of reports. I read what ECOMOS Palestine, of course, reports, and I read other reports that are done by other organizations. But I will speak only about places I know. That is the way I work. I don't like to take information from other countries. I like to show what I know, what I feel, what I have been facing in all these years. Well, as you all know, Bethlehem is the most important Christian site. It was the first World Heritage Site nominated by Palestine when it became a state member, a state party of UNESCO. I was ambassador at the time, by the way. Bethlehem was the first one, and it was very courageous of Palestine to actually nominate a Christian site as its first site. No, okay. What is happening to Bethlehem? Well, Bethlehem, they are doing their best to kill the most important economic reality in Palestine, which is the tourism, the pilgrimage tourism to Bethlehem and other Christian sites. And this is being done in various ways. And to me, it is part of a plan to destroy the importance of the identity of Palestine by destroying the importance of its heritage. Well, as you can see, these are photos taken from, shall we say, the level of the Nativity Church towards the valleys beyond, And we are seeing that suddenly there is an enormous amount of settlements just across the valley. Settlements that are controlled, that are not accessible to everyone, and these are slowly invading the vicinity of Bethlehem. Besides those, of course, we also have the wall. Next slide, the wall which has now surrounded Bethlehem completely. And this is extremely worrying because Bethlehem is slowly losing its outstanding universal values, its attributes, because it is losing completely its importance as a site. And this is very, very worrying. Another site that I worked on a lot was Berat. Berat is a very beautiful green valley, and it is green and very important for agriculture because there are important water supply that was controlled by the time even of the Romans. And there, when I did the dossier here, the emphasis was not so much on the village, which is not, I like the village, but it's not that important, but on the system of the supply of water. So all the importance of the valley, even as a World Heritage Site, next slide, okay, is related to the water system, which is divided through tunnels, through waterways into the valley. And it's a very unique distribution system of the 9 most important families in Berat. And they have a system whereby every day the families get a certain amount of water, and once a week, one family will get twice that amount of water. It's a very unique system in the Middle East, and I emphasize very much on the system when we met and developed the dossier. Now, what's happening? They're happening the same as in the other places. There is a big settlement across the valley, which is coming down towards the valley, and they have already started to take some of this water from this village, meaning that the whole importance of the way the water is distributed is being ruined. So ruining even, again, the OUV, the outstanding universal values of this village. Next slide. And this is extremely important and difficult to control. You cannot control it. And by the way, there was always, I missed something to say something before. You go back one second. Sorry, Marwa. And the other one. The problem was that, first of all, there was always friendship between the Palestinian Arab villagers living on one side of the valley, close to the village of Berat, and on the other side of the valley, there were Jewish Israeli farmers, and they worked together perfectly. There was no problem until there was a decision to build the wall right in the middle of the valley to divide Palestine and Israel. There was never in the history of Berat any problem of violence, of confrontation, and yet they wanted to build this wall. And thanks to the fact that we managed to make it a World Heritage Site, the Supreme Court of Israel did not accept that they build this wall. So we saved the valley, we saved the cultural landscape, which is extremely important. But now this is under threat from the settlements. And by the way, when we talk about settlements, sometimes people don't remember that there are 700,000 illegal settlers. 700,000, and they are growing very fast. They will soon reach 1 million, no doubt. By law, by international law, they are building in an illegal way on what is Palestinian land. Next slide. And this is seen next year. This is seen very much in another beautiful valley called Kremizan. Kremizan is a valley which is close to Beijela, very close to Bethlehem, very, very close. And it was renowned for its olives. This was a valley completely of olive trees, some of which were more than 1,000 years old. And by the way, there was also a lot of vernacular architecture of huts and other buildings that the farmers used in the valley. Beyond the valley, there is not a very nice, as you can see on the photos, city, okay, a modern city, but the valley itself was very much protected because it gave the olives, very, very good olives, to Palestinian farmers. And I was asked to write the dossier for this valley as part of the Syria nomination regarding olives in Palestine. Well, suddenly there were big machinery coming in, and they destroyed hundreds, literally hundreds of olive trees, completely destroyed. They didn't even try to pull them up. They just destroyed them and destroyed a whole way of living in this valley. And in a very short time, you can put next slide if you want, in a very short time, Israel built a highway right above the middle of this valley. So by the time that we had our World Heritage dossier, it was too late. There was nothing to protect. The values, the attributes of this beautiful valley was completely destroyed, and there is no way that it could be nominated for World Heritage. So in fact, Palestine withdrew the nomination. I just wish to emphasize here that this road that you are seeing with massive columns, really very ugly design as well. They didn't even design something that could go over the valley without ruining the valley. It's completely ruined with this enormous columns. I must emphasize that this area was part of the land given to Palestine as part of the West Bank. And yet, the Israelis went ahead and built this horrible road, which has completely ruined the landscape of this area. Unfortunately, very few people know about Kremizan. It's a pity. But I wish to emphasize as well that even when in the news that we hear all the time, we hear about West Bank. I assure you that most people do not understand what is the West Bank. And when all the time in the news we talk about the West Bank, people just don't understand that this, what we're talking about, is Palestine. In the same way that the Gaza Strip, a very ugly name given by the British. Yes, next slide, please. People don't understand what do you mean by strip. The British gave it that name because Gaza is a 40-kilometer land on the sea. If Gaza was a normal country, a normal part of Palestine, a normal place, it would have enormous tourism because it has one long, very beautiful beach. Well, as we all know, practically all the heritage of Gaza has been destroyed. Now, this is very difficult for me to say, Marwa, but I have to say it. And I have said it already, and I have to say that even in my own country, I don't feel safe because of what I have said about Gaza and Palestine. I went 3 times to Gaza, and I don't have the photos I can show you, but trying to go in and out through what is called the Erez border is extremely difficult, extremely well protected. There are cameras everywhere, barbed wire everywhere. There are big balloons with cameras, and Gaza was completely controlled by drones. I have videos where I am looking at heritage and you can hear the drone above my head, because everywhere I went, I had a drone above my head. Of course, I didn't film it. It would have been dangerous for me, but I had a drone literally above my head, controlling what I am seeing and controlling what I am saying. I was under constant control. And yet, October 7 happened. I will not say more. I will just say that I believe that it was part of a plan to destroy Gaza. I think I have said enough. People can understand me. I don't want to put anyone in trouble because, as I said, we are talking about heritage. I will stop there on that point. Well, Gaza is a small parcel of land with more than 2 million people. Practically the same size as Malta. Malta has 500,000 people. And Gaza had over almost 2.5 million, almost 2.5 million. Before this explosion of population, and by the way, as you know, most people were forced to go to Gaza. It was not built as much as it was built before the war, where almost everywhere was built, because you have 2.5 million people, they had to live somewhere. Before this terrible situation of after 2004, before Gaza had over 100 registered important heritage. By the time, of course, I went there 3 years ago, there was very little left. Not a lot. But there was a lot of important heritage within Gaza City itself. A lot of vernacular architecture in the villages, like Khan Yunis and other villages. Very, very interesting architecture. which was adapted to the climate of an area next to the sea. And all of this is now lost. For me, one of the most important and beautiful buildings was the Great Omari Mosque, right in the middle of Gaza City. This was originally a Byzantine basilica. In the 8th century, it was changed into a mosque, as happened in many places. There are mosques that became churches. There are churches that became mosques. It's natural. Islam had come in. Gaza in the beginning was, of course, very Christian, because it was a point of transfer of Christians from the south, like Sudan and Egypt, towards what we call the Holy Land, and also from the European side, from the west towards the east. In fact, Gaza was the second most important port after the port of Caesarea, named by the Romans. Well, I have seen many cathedrals in my life. When I entered the Great Omari Mosque, I felt like I was entering a cathedral. They hardly changed anything from the architecture, from the original Christian architecture. They made it into a mosque, yes, there are elements of a mosque, but hardly changed. And the architecture was extremely beautiful and well kept and well restored. And it has been destroyed. For what? For no reason whatsoever. There are no underground tunnels under the mosque. There was a very important library, which they are trying to collect as much as they can from the old library. But this was such a beautiful architecture. And to me, what really angers me is that Malta is part of Europe. We are part of the EU, we are part of Schengen. Europe has said a lot, stop the war, but in reality, nothing has been done. And they even allowed the destruction of so much Christian heritage. A lot of Christian heritage in Gaza has been destroyed. And this is a terrible shame on all of us. Well, you can reconstruct, but it will never be the same. Never. Next. The mosque had a beautiful courtyard. People used to gather there all the time. And this was it's right in the middle of Gaza City. So Gaza City, there are many, many people. There is very little which is open space. And the courtyard of this mosque was something very, very important for the people in many, many, many ways. Well, look at the destruction in just 1 year. I was there in August, and it was one of the first buildings that was destroyed. It makes you cry, really makes you cry. And that is why my emphasis is that there is a deliberate attempt to destroy the national identity of Palestine. Next slide. There were also some private museums. People who had collected artifacts over time. This was a very important and very excellent private museum in a hotel. And the owner had consultants, had French archaeologists consulting him and so on. And he made an excellent museum. This has all been destroyed or stolen. There's nothing left there, nothing. Of course, I do not have photos of what there is now, because there are many areas where the people can't go, and of course they have other problems not to take photos of heritage. Next slide. This is very important because 3 years ago, during the construction of a large housing area in Jabal and the north, during the construction, they found a Roman cemetery, over 200 tombs of various sizes, very, very important, some sarcophagi, some other very important artifacts were found there. And I was impressed, very impressed, that in spite of the fact that they needed to build the housing, the government of Gaza, and we all know who the government of Gaza is, sent soldiers to protect the area. I was there when they uncovered a large part of it. I was there in 2022. They called the French archaeologists. They called the local archaeologist, Faten, who is an excellent person. He is still working in Gaza. And they protected the site and they started documenting the site. Now, I want to emphasize here that first I said that I don't always like when there are, shall we say, European and other archaeological missions going to these areas. But I must say, I was very, very impressed by the work done by PUI. PUI is an NGO, a French NGO, Première Urgence Internationale. They are not a heritage NGO, they are a humanitarian NGO, and they were working in Gaza to help, to give people to eat, to help them in many, many ways. And they came into heritage when they realized that there was a need for people to be trained, local people to be trained. So they started training local people with the help of a French archaeologist, and as I said, also a local archaeologist, even teaching them languages, primarily French, of course, but giving work to a great number of local people. That is the correct way of doing things. Not going and saying, we are the big experts, so we tell you what to do. No, they train local people, and they are still there. And by the way, also I wish to praise the Aleph Foundation. The Aleph Foundation has given €1 million now to Gaza, again, to train local people to gather the artifacts, the books, the artifacts, anything that they can find in destroyed heritage sites, to document them, at least to have a documentation of the little that they can find. This is a great initiative. Next slide. Well, one of the most beautiful little palaces in the middle of Gaza City was Pasha Palace. This was an Ottoman building, very, very beautifully restored, and it was made into a museum with some extremely important things inside, including one of the most beautiful sarcophagus from the Roman burial site I have just shown you. Well, look at the site now. They destroyed, and look, please, at that photo. They